darkness, I see building light. Flashing colors, crying shadows, dancing in the night. When those lights all fall out, flares and fires too. Well, it's dim without the bright spots, but it's dark without you. Well, the runway's on and hot lights still shine on it. Keep up that pace, you're my ace. Head down, sunny said. Once I saw a blazing glow, snuffed out in a heat. For our rock roll echoes, their fate to sleep down deep. All these lights don't have to shine. They don't have to be so bright. Dim and plotting, bobbing, driving.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Eskwilax Hour, episode 85. I'm your host, Efren Martinez. The Eskwilax Hour, where we bring you art, interviews, and local issues. And today we bring Patrick H. Moore. I hope I got that right. Nah, he'll be here in a second. And yeah, he's here to talk about Prop 64 and why it's a big no-no. And we actually already did a show about it on the past, but that was like maybe 2 months ago. So this show is more of a, to remind you guys not to, what's bad about Prop 64 and the hidden agenda behind it. But before we go into that, I just want to announce one of our viewers. Her name is Victoria Dowding. She's actually doing, it's called Gathering 1 Million Books for TJ Children by November 8th. And you can find that on Facebook. So that's like an announcement on behalf of, for Victoria. You can find her page, I think it's called Reading with Grandma. Sorry. Oh, Reading con Abuela. That's her Facebook page. So you guys go to that page, kind of read up on what she's doing for the kids. I believe she's like, it says to desire to help children become bilingual and teaching, she wants to teach the children of California and Baja California by streaming live and saving stories. I'm sorry, I think that was just part of the announcement. But yeah, I was talking to her, I was messaging with her earlier, and she says that yeah, she wants to have 1 million books donated by next, when's the 8th? I think is, yeah, next week. So good luck on that. If you guys are watching, make sure you guys hit her up on Facebook and let her know that you want to join. And I believe she's also doing an artist call out. If you guys are interested for contributing to her cause. The art does go, I believe, it goes to Tijuana, and you guys would have to ship it to her. But I'm pretty sure if you contact her or contact me, I'll get you guys more info, she can let you guys know more about it. So yeah, find the page. It's called, sorry guys, you guys know. Trying to find it again, my apologies. Reading con Abuela. So check that out. And of course, always shout out to Yayo, shout out to Nigma, shout out to KTCA, keeping the culture alive in Montebello. You guys are out there. Greenie Lokes, or just Greenie, shout out. Let's see, who else do we know that watches every week, that's here with us, or that keeps up at least. What else? Who else? I think I'm forgetting. Oh, Chucky Mesa came on. R2J2, thanks. She came on like 2 weeks ago. Cool. So thank you guys for watching, for supporting the Eskwilax Hour. Again, this is episode 85, and we're gonna be talking about no on Prop 64, or just why it's a bad idea to vote yes on it. Cool. So I'm just gonna step over here. As you guys can see, the slideshow is going with a few images. So yeah, Patrick H. Moore, like I was saying.
All right,
man. Welcome back again.
It's great to be here again. Thank you again so much.
Cool. Yeah, we're
Fantastic setting.
Yeah, I was telling everybody how we're gonna refreshing up their memories, and how boating is so close.
5 days away.
There you
It's
go,
really
guys.
Up to us.
5 days,
Yes.
and yeah, he's here to bring knowledge that we need.
I'm going to do my very best. It's a very complicated issue and it's a very complicated initiative, but we have delved deep into it, and I know most of the hooks in it, and I'm more than glad to share them with you because that's really the problem.
Yeah,
This thing's just wrought with hooks. We're calling it the initiative with 1,000 hooks, because every page, 62 pages, every page has got 2, 3, 4 ways that you and I and people we know are going to get into trouble.
Yeah,
That's what
of
we all
course.
need to know. Legalization just means you're adding laws to something. It means you're creating laws around something. If this was decriminalization, we'd all be very excited. I want to be here. I could be out there celebrating and doing other things
Yeah.
and getting ready to vote yes. But it's not. It's a legalization bill. So that makes us required to look very closely at it. And the closer we look, the uglier this thing gets.
and yeah, in the the last episode we did, you guys actually brought the paperwork, right? And then
Absolutely.
Letitia
Pepper,
Pepper.
did a brilliant analysis of this law, because I worked on Prop 215. I've looked at every bill, read through, studied every bill that's been introduced since, both
Yeah.
here in California and worldwide. And the second or third time I read through Prop 64, I realized I don't know what half of this means. And that's after reading 60, 70, 80 different legalization bills.
Yeah.
So Letitia Pepper then sat down with us and we went through it, and it took her 36 hours because it references other laws.
Yeah.
So everyone in California keeps saying, yeah, I looked at it or I read it. And I know they didn't. Not in a way that actually gives you a full understanding, because each time it references another law, you've got to look up that law and bring it in and say, oh, all right, so it's going to do what this does, and it's going to do what this does. And after you do that, again, 36 hours with a top-notch professional attorney, we finally started to see what they were really trying to do. And it looks more like a trap. It looks
Yeah.
more like, in politics, they call it a Trojan horse.
Yeah, Trojan
Where
horse.
They say they're giving you a gift. Oh, look at this nice gift. We're going to help you guys legalize. And yet within it are a bunch of UMA cops with $1 billion a year going to be busting everybody in the state for every excuse they got. And they got 62 pages of excuses.
There
So
you
yeah,
go.
it's a very dangerous bill. Worse than the worst bill I've ever seen. And that's after some very bad bills. We gave warnings to Washington. Hey, I wouldn't trust that one. Colorado had all sorts of problems in it that they're still dealing with. None of them as bad as this one though.
So this one's pretty bad.
The worst we've seen.
This one, how long have they been working on this?
They say they started writing this, and we're hearing now 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
8 years ago, they started formulating this idea. Prop 19 was an attempt they had to legalize here, but looking back on it all, I don't think they were that serious about that. I think they were filling space and mostly trying to keep good legislation off the ballot until they could get this thing finished and fine-tuned, because again, this is no simple bill. This is not like, all right, we sat down for a few months and figured out how to solve the problem. They sat down for years to figure out how to tax, dominate, and control
Exactly how to.
every nug in this state. And that's what they say. From seed to sale, every step monitored, taxed, and controlled. To the point, because I know they say in Prop 64 you can have up to 6 plants, and that sounds awful romantic. Well, 6 plants, wow, you can actually blow up some big old plants and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Up to 6 plants. So no guarantee of 6 plants, no more than 6 plants ever.
No more,
though.
yeah,
So
no,
less
that's-
than 6 plants inside your house with the local legislation, state and county, able to regulate it 100%. So ultimately what you're guaranteed is 1 plant. They have to give you something technically. It has to be inside your house, can't have it outside, so you gotta be paying for
Can't have it
electricity, you gotta
outside.
set up this whole thing.
Yeah.
And they can tax it whatever they want. So your local county can say, all right, we're going to put $600 a plant tax on. And your local city can say, all right, we're going to put $400 on top of that. So $1,000 for your 1 plant inside your house. And they could just say, hey, we want to come through and walk through your house every 2 weeks to make sure you aren't fucking up your electricity or something like that.
And then-
so walkthroughs by city officials, and it says it doesn't have to be police officers. It says any city official
Any city
that has
official.
permission to come into your house or anywhere cannabis is stored, processed, grown, anytime they want. So that's what we're agreeing to. It's like in Colorado, they said, yeah, you can grow, but you got to set up a live video camera inside your grow room, and you have to pay for the live feed
Jeez.
directly to the local sheriff's station. 24-hour video surveillance of your grow to the sheriff's station while you're paying for it inside my house, inside my garage.
And
I got a
that's-
live video camera going to the sheriff's, and I'm paying for that? That's crazy.
It is crazy.
We are not making we aren't splitting the atom here. We're growing a very safe plant.
Yeah.
We're growing something that is very intricately related to humanity. Big part of our history, big part of our culture. To say that we need video cameras, or what Sean Parker and his crew in the Bay Area are working on, chips, microchips, in every plant. And then the drones that fly over with the new police are going to have drones, and they're going to be able to fly over your house and pick up the chips that are feeding information out into the world about how much the plant weighs. So, and this all fits in with the taxes. The key complaint I have, I mean, there are so many, but one of the worst, and this is where most people lose it with Prop 64 right away, zero money goes into the general fund. So every 4 months, we've been hearing from Colorado, wow, they got another 40, 50, 60 million dollars they're putting into the schools, and now they've so stoked out and filled out their schools with everything they want that they're moving into homeless programs, and they're moving into other. That's what the general fund does.
Yeah.
Put money in general fund that pays for the basic things.
And then this one doesn't.
Zero. I didn't even think that was legal at first. I had to really reread that and say, can they even introduce this? And I was told that maybe they could slip that through somehow if we vote for it.
Yeah.
Zero money goes to the general fund.
Zero.
It all goes, and it will be well over $1 billion, much closer to $1.5 billion every year. It's going to go into a slush fund. And it's defined as slush fund because one man gets to decide who gets it all. It's slated.
That was my next question. Where does it go?
Right. It's slated for certain things. The largest chunk is slated for enforcement. Enforcement of UMA. So that's where the UMA cops come from.
Yeah.
With $800-900 million a year to make sure we don't have more than 6 plants, or whatever your county allows, 1 plant. Don't have more than an ounce on us. Don't have more than 3 grams, 4 grams, 6, whatever it is, because it's not even that's not very clear. And all the other rules, all the other regulations, all the other technicalities. $1 billion a year in policing. So they're going to have high-tech cops. These cops can't figure out how to spend this money quick enough, but luckily Sean Parker knows a lot of people in the high-tech industry in the Bay Area. So he's giving us the money and then already trying to take it back. So they're scheming on how to spend this $1.5 billion a year. In Sacramento, I'm already told that the senators and the people on the inside there, they're calling this the Gavin Newsom 2024 Presidential Slush Fund. Because he plans on being governor for the next 8 years. And if he's going to reach in and grab $1.5 billion and throw that out to his friends in 8 years, he's going to the White House. You know what? If I could reach into a big bucket, scoop out $1.5 billion a year and hand it out to key people, I could probably run to the White House, right?
True.
I would have a clear shot at maybe getting in the White House. So with that amount of money allowed to be at Newsom's discretion, given the people for 60% for enforcement, so straight up cops, straight up kicking in doors and taking our stuff again. The rest of it for drug rehabs and community education, and that sounds so sweet until you realize who these people are and what they think of us. They think of cannabis, and this is Dr. Donald Lyman, this is Gavin Newsom, this is this whole cabal that's giving us legalization. They think of cannabis as a dangerous, addictive drug.
Yeah.
And 92% of the population that smokes 50% of the cannabis, they're okay, because they don't care. They'll pay whatever, they'll smoke whatever, no discretion, they'll get it from 7-Eleven, $100 cartridge, they don't care. That's their picture of the future cannabis community. The 8% of this population that smokes the other 50%, that's the sick group.
Yeah.
That's the group that's going to get the drug rehabs and rehabilitation and the community counseling and the education for youth. It's all about making sure they never end up being one of these daily cannabis smokers that are really sick addicts. So sick, matter of fact, they actually call their drug medicine. This is what Dr. Donald Lyman told the LA Times last year. This is what these people promote in public. I'm not making this up. Dr. Donald, the lying man, Lyman. He is a dangerous propagandist from like the old school reefer madness days. I mean, crazy stuff that we can scientifically disprove, culturally disprove. He still spews it like we're living in the 1930s.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Crazy man. And yet, he's the proponent of Prop 64. His name is the name at the top of it. So Sean Parker's paying a lot of money for it. Gavin Newsom helped write it with his blue ribbon panel. But Lyman, Dr. Lyman, It's his initiative. He hates you. He hates me. He hates this entire cannabis community, and told the LA Times, an initiative this heavy-handed, an initiative this packed full of regulations and control is the only thing that's going to get this little situation under control where people wake up in the morning and they wake and bake. He considers that to be a crime and a sickness. So unless we want to hand over, you know, it's a 10, 12, $15 billion a year industry.
That's Donald Lyman, right?
Dr. Donald Lyman. If we want to hand this over to him and say, all right, you fix us with your scheme, your 62-page scheme, then fine. Maybe we don't need cannabis. Maybe we don't want to need medicine. Maybe the B-rate Marlboro joints we're going to get at 7-Eleven will be fine. But not in my world.
Yeah.
Not where I come from. There's more at stake in this than anybody could ever imagine, because despite it being an important medicine, it is actually the most important raw resource on the planet. So
yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't really talk about.
Absolutely. No, the first 10 or 12 billions got everybody all excited. Medicine. We all know now that because of Prop 215, because of brave steps voters in this state took, we all know now it's the best medicine in the world.
Yep.
Useful for hundreds of different conditions, 100% safe, and yet its use as fuel and fiber, paper, plastics, that's what this fight is over. Yeah. That's why Lyman and Parker and Newsom and Soros and Big Agro and ultimately Monsanto want this plant and want this law so bad. Because without free access to cannabis, without fair and equal access to cannabis, hemp, sativa, indica, rudialis, all of its forms, we will never transfer this culture off of petroleum onto a sustainable, locally produced fuel.
Yeah.
And that's the key. I want to get away from petroleum. That means pharmaceutical drugs, most of them, and the fuel. You know, I told you my Mercedes-Benz runs on hemp oil.
Yeah.
I've been running my car on hemp oil for 7 years. That's how much I dislike petroleum. And it's not easy. It's expensive in California because we can't grow it. My goal in doing that was 7 years ago, is I thought soon I'd be able to grow it and then continue on with that pattern. It's become very expensive and very hard to do because it's Canadian hemp, it's Australian hemp, it's hemp from Eastern Europe, but the oil runs my car better than diesel fuel.
Wow.
And at a fraction of the cost, we're at local.
Yeah.
And at a sliver of the environmental impact, which is also really the most important part. So we're talking about food, fuel, and fiber. Now we're in the hundreds of billions and very quickly slipping into the trillions of dollars a year in resources that they want to hyper control. Like it's petroleum. Like, again, we're splitting the atom here in California, and we're not. We're growing the oldest, most connected plant with humanity. You go back through all the ancient books, you start realizing what its nicknames were, because we call it pot, reefer, ganja, weed, 100 names today. Back in the day, it had more than one name too. So once you realize that calamus, cannablossom, reed, when they referred to reed in the Bible, cannablossom, calamus, most of those referred to cannabis.
Yeah.
So all the stuff about burning this stuff and incense and all, most of that was about cannabis. So you start piecing it all together and you're like, wow, they used it for everything back then. Same with our founding fathers, Washington and Jefferson, everything. They smoked it, they made their fuel out of it, they were eating it, they made bold and dynamic and poetic statements about it, they really honored and respected it. They would be on our side today. Not only would they be standing up against Prop 64, but they would be fighting for fair and equal access.
Yeah. And you guys seen this?
64.
You guys seen it around us?
All over Southern California, and now heading into Northern California. Street signs and billboards around the state are covered with this sign because the people care about this issue. We're up against, like I said, 25, at this point, somewhere near $25 million has been spent above board trying to pass Prop 64. Probably a few million more thrown under the table is what it's looking like. And it's a dirty and desperate campaign by them. I've never seen so many professionals lie so boldly about something that I'm pretty sure most of them know they're lying about, and yet they continue to lie. So again, that's what happens when you start tangling yourself up with globalists and the big players in the world, is you lose your integrity. So again, we're standing our ground. We're doing our very best to make sure that at least the people know what they're voting for. Because if they were being honest from the get-go, we wouldn't worry about this bill at all. But they're taking our catchphrases, legalize, free, deschedule, decriminalize cannabis, and we will help the economy, and it will take care of police issues, all this stuff. It's not going to do any of that.
Yeah, and that's probably why they're always mentioning, Colorado. They're always like...
talking about Colorado, but this bill isn't like Colorado.
Yeah.
And some of the problems with the way they legalized in Colorado, again, 45% taxes on top of something, there's always going to be an underground. There'll always be a black market where people will be arrested, and the whole game will go on with the jails and the probation systems and all that. As long as you create any tobacco, you do it with any product. You create enough of a tax, somebody or a big bunch of people are going to go underneath that and sell it cheaper.
Yeah.
So over-taxation of this is not the answer. Everybody thinks we're going to solve every budget issue in America by putting it on the backs and shoulders of cannabis consumers. No way. No way. We're not. It's not a sin tax, because what we're doing is not a sin.
Yeah.
Right. If there's anything that shouldn't be taxed in our culture, it's medicine, as most medicine's not taxed in our culture, and all use is medicinal use. That was always the key with Prop 215, is this is a law not for sick people, this is a law for everybody. And for $50, you could get a note that allowed you to have, and allows you to have to this day, as much medicine as you want.
215, how long has that been around?
20 years. 20 years and 5 days. In 5 days, we will have the 20-year anniversary of Prop 215, and I hope we are celebrating it by still having it.
Yeah.
Because despite the fact that it says in Prop 64, it's designed to protect the laws around and concerning Prop 215. That doesn't mean it's designed to protect Prop 215.
The laws around it.
If you wanted to protect Prop 215, you would say, designed to protect Proposition 215. But it says designed to protect the laws around and concerning Prop 215, not 215. The laws concerning and around 215 are MRSA. These 3 bills that passed last year that are not completely, but mostly invalid until they're validated by UMA. If UMA passes, it says right in it, it's designed to enhance and uphold the really, really shady nature of these MRSA bills. Well named, because it's a fungus you get in the hospital and it eats your fingers off and stuff. That's MRSA. It's a disease. But it's also the disease of the cannabis industry in California right now. It's these 3 bills that were passed last year that they just sat on, knowing they didn't have legs. Knowing the first time MRSA went to a judge, the judge would throw it out because it conflicted with 215.
Yeah.
The only way MRSA has any legs at all is if UMA passes.
Once UMA passes.
Then the 2 will lock in, and it's over. It's done. Within a year, 95% of the patients in this state won't be able to get the notes. So technically, there still will be a medical thing, but no one's going to have access to it. And then we're all left like Washington today, where there's no medical in Washington. There's no medical status. You're a recreational patient, and if you're trying to cure cancer with your recreational drugs, good luck. It's going to be very expensive and very hard. They aren't promoting that at all. Again, we still have a law in California that promotes us giving away cannabis.
Yeah.
It promotes us to grow as much as we need, and as soon as we have more than we need, we're encouraged to give it to another patient. That's amazing. I mean, just think about that. Let that sink in for a minute. That's Proposition 215. For 20 years, California's had a law that encourages you to give away cannabis. Why aren't we celebrating that? These fake activists, these professional activists in California keep whining and complaining about Prop 215 while saying this UMA is going to somehow help us. And nothing could be further from the truth. What we call for this year, as well as crushing Prop 64, voting against it, getting everyone you know to vote against it, if we can get it down below 45%, they will think twice about doing it again in 2 years. They will think long and hard about wasting another $25–30 million trying to give us something we don't want. So we want to get it way down there. We don't want it to just pass by a point or fail by a point or two. But we would also like to gut, and as far as I can throw into the dustbins of history, NORML, the National Organization of Referral for Marijuana Lawyers. That's really what they are. ASA, the NPP, and most importantly, the DPA, the Drug Policy Alliance. Let's get rid of all of them. They have not helped us in a decade. if ever, really, ultimately. So again, these are organizations that have long overlived their life expectancy, and if ever there was a moment that called for a boycott, it is the California cannabis industry boycotting ASA, NORML, the MPP, and the DPA. Let's just work together. There's nothing they do. They just take our money and sell us down the river. We'd be better spending our money ourselves. We really need several thousand people in this state to quit trusting professional activists and for the next 2 years become amateur activists. Spend a little bit of money, make your own posters, get involved, pick the good bill you want to see happen, and fight for it the way the Bernie people did. Fight for it the way these Jill Stein activists are. Get behind something and put some weight into it, because this is our future. We either have 20 or 30 years more of fair and equal access, or our 20 years of access, boom, slams in our face and it's over and it's done. And then we watch many of the best people in the state go to prison and get entangled in the legal system over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And maybe we lose 80 or 90% of the strains that are here in California. Maybe we end up with some B-grade genetically engineered Monsanto cannabis that nobody will touch with a 10-foot pole, and that becomes California weed. We have the #1 brand in the world right now. Everyone on this planet knows, I wish I had some weed from California. Humboldt County. Everyone knows Humboldt County, although Southern California is well known for its Kushes now, right? So we got the Kush belt, we got the Emerald Triangle. Everybody in the world knows this is where the best weed comes from. That brand, that status, that could be gone in 5 years. Sean Parker could just mess that up. This is the guy who destroyed the music industry. He's about to destroy our cannabis industry.
And he's the one behind.
He's the one behind Napster.
Putting.
And he's the one who's been paying for this.
All these ads and.
I've
seen some of them.
Oh yeah, he's got deep pockets. These guys aren't complete idiots. I mean, they aren't really all that bright with the amount of money they have and their status. I expected better this year. But yes, they hired some decent people to make some decent ads that kind of pull on our heartstrings, because they aren't required to tell the truth.
Wow.
If they actually had to tell the truth, those ads would have looked a little different. So it's up to us to decipher. It's up to us to know that big money lies, and that I mean, we all should have known day one. I mean, we should have just said, wait, Sean Parker and Newsom and Lyman? I didn't even actually have to read it when I knew who was putting it on. Then I read it, and of course it was terrible, but I didn't have to read it. I knew of a group of globalists came together who are on the record saying they hate weed. But they're gonna, you know, Gavin Newsom, right? Good looking guy. He's supposed to be like the new Kennedy or something, right? He says he's never smoked weed, so proudly. Every time he says it, he's never crossed his. And he hopes his young daughters can grow up in California, his state that he's gonna be running. They can grow up here and never, ever have to smell marijuana. That's the future governor of California saying he hopes in this state his girls can go from 8 to 18 and 28 and 38, live the rest of their lives in the state and never have to smell marijuana? That's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's like some nutty person today saying, well, I don't drink, and I don't approve of drinking, and I hope my kids grow up and never have to see somebody drink a beer. What would you say to somebody like that? That's a little delusional. You probably shouldn't hope for stuff like that. That's not going to happen, and you probably shouldn't.
Nah.
But
nuts.
Newsom can say that, and we all still pretend like he's a cannabis-loving Californian liberal because he's part of the Democratic Party, so he must be liberal. He must be trying to help us out. That's just not true. That's just not true anymore, guys. We need to really hold these guys accountable for not only what they say during their special little 64 pep rallies, but what they said a year ago, what they said 2 or 3 years ago. That's the bigger picture. That's how you really know who these guys are.
Yeah.
Prop 64. Rotten to the core. Coming this November, kick it out the door. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for tuning in. The Eskwilax Hour, episode 85. Patrick, we're here talking about why no on 64. And this is our second episode on it. And thank you guys for tuning in again. And yeah, Patrick, there's a lot of information that people don't read into it.
Absolutely.
But ever since you guys started bringing, well, I think David, he's been bringing like the little these, what do you call it? They look like coasters.
Informational flyers.
Informational flyers. If you guys have seen them,
revolution.
Yeah, have you guys seen them? And I've also seen the you know where I've seen it? The ads in like the Spanish newspapers.
Right.
It says yes on 64 and why you shouldn't.
Right.
And I was like, damn, like they're really misinforming everybody else also.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Once the Democratic machine got into this, we saw something like we've never seen before. We've seen, you know, Prop 19, they had a whole little campaign. We've seen other bills. There's always been, every 2 years for the last 10 years, there's been a billionaire in California trying to pass a bad bill.
Yeah.
So we've fought and beat these guys left and right. But like I said, this teaming up of Newsom, Parker, these nuts and Looney Tunes, but they're big wigs. They're big money, big power. Yeah. They're pulling in favors. They're pulling in. They're playing dirty. So yeah. So that's why we need you. This is why we need every single person in the state to say, "Wait, I love cannabis," or someone I know loves cannabis, and they deserve better.
Exactly.
Prop 64, rotten to the core, making
core.
patients sore. They deserve better. We all deserve more.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Yes.
No, that's good because I mean, the more people know about it, come voting day.
Right.
And you were saying that they were at 50 something now, or 60 something.
They started polling at 64%. Ironically, when it first came out, Prop 64. The last couple polls in the last couple weeks put them at both 51 and 52%. So they've lost 12 or 13 points.
Yeah,
they're freaking out.
Yeah,
they just dumped another 10 million in. It's emergency red alert in their camp. We're loving it. No guarantees though. It could still, I mean, it's right there at the edge, so it could go either way. We really need everybody who's a cannabis lover to take that next step, whatever it may be. Getting the Kinkos tomorrow, running some of these off. You can go to Facebook or Instagram or anywhere online and find your favorite description of it. There are all sorts of write-ups, all sorts of articles, 1,000 memes about how messed up this bill is. Grab one, put it together with a little description, print off 1,000 and get them out in your neighborhood this weekend and on Monday. Get on social media, better yet, easier yet. Get on social media, hashtag no on 64 or vote no on 64 or stop.
This has a little code on it too. If you guys find these, you can actually scan the code and it'll take you to the
detailed description, the legal annotated full Prop 64 in its totality, but between each paragraph in bright red is the Patricia Pepper's description of what that really means. Because again, they wrote it in legalese, which right there should have disqualified UMA from even getting on the ballot. By law, any ballot initiative has to be easily understood by the general voting public. 62 pages of legalese that even our attorney had a hard time understanding basically violates the entire principle of the ballot initiative. So technically this never should have gotten on the ballot in the first place, as well as when they sent out the summaries of all the initiatives, they only put in half of Prop 64.
Only half of it?
Only half of it went out in the book everyone just got. And it was a pretty hefty little book describing all the initiatives, but only half of it was in there. So even that's not valid. There are a great number of people in the state who didn't get a full look at the law, which they're legally required to have. So these guys have been playing, again, they've been bending the law and twisting the truth and distorting the system, all so they can pass a bad bill here in California. And you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool Californians about weed. There it is.
Well, let me take a minute and read this because it's actually in Spanish. So,
yes.
So as I was saying that, I saw the clipping in the newspaper and I was like, whoa. I'm like, not even now they're even trying to get it like in Spanish and kind of fool people into.
They're following our coattails a lot. What I've noticed is for months and months, and really years and years now, every time we do something, they do it within weeks. They've been following on our coattails the whole time. And you know, we're somewhat stoked about that. We're not an undefined, unnoticed entity in this state. The patients and the cannabis enthusiasts are a force to be reckoned with. A man named Joe Trippi a year ago told these guys, you can spend 10, 20, 30, or $40 million trying to pass one of these bad bills in California. And as long as that grassroots group is out there doing their thing, you have no guarantees. There's no guarantees because they kept saying, well, yeah, 10 million, we could maybe try to do something, but at 20 million or 30 or 40 million, we can guarantee it. They were just trying to get money, right? Reform California, this group that was working with Richard Branson a year and a half ago before UMA even popped up on the radar. They had their own bad bill, and they hired Joe Trippi, and he's a big wig with the Democratic Party, big wig. Came out here, consulted with them for a while, left saying, yeah, $40 million, no guarantees.
No guarantees.
So Sean Parker's a gambling man, I guess, because he says, well, I'll spend 30 or 40. Whatever happens, happens. So again, we hope it's all money, good money after bad, as they say.
Yeah.
If we can shut this thing down, again, they likely won't come back in 2 years quite as hard. And then we could finally get something decent passed, similar to Prop 215, but with recreational use, as it's known, and with industrial use, more importantly. But both of those guaranteed to have fair and equal access. As long as everybody's on the same playing field, we're cool.
Yeah.
We don't mind a little regulation. We don't even mind paying a few taxes. I know people love to pull up a couple of clips of Jack Hare over the years saying, they don't deserve one damn penny of ours. They don't deserve any of our taxes. And I understand that. I appreciate that feeling. And yet Jack Hare wrote the California Cannabis Hemp Initiative, and in there he limits the taxes at 10%.
Yeah.
So they're not even saying no taxes. We're even allowing a little bit of an excise tax. But 10%.
10%.
Nothing that's going to push anybody over the edge. Nothing that's going to push.
10%.
Right.
Reasonable.
Because this 64, it says growers have to pay their taxes before they sell their herb. So you grow your herb, and if you grow a big garden, you might have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in taxes you have to pay for before you can send it off to the guy who then sends it to somebody who then sends it to the customers. You'll never see your customer in this thing again.
Yeah.
No one will ever know who's growing anybody's herb, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to send it to people who then test it, and then they send it and package it, all these steps. And along there, everyone's paying their tax, but from the grower's starting point, he's got to pay his tax before he gets paid. Right there, going to knock out half the growers in the state. Who's got an extra 30 or 40 at the end of their entire season? It's just cruel. It's just cruel. It's a setup. Nobody's read the details that's supporting this. Everybody who's then finally been forced to read through it. Few people even make it past page 10 before they're shaking their heads saying, there's no way. There's no way any of us are going to survive in this kind of mess. And that's really all we ask. Read it yourself before voting. It's that important. It's that big of an issue. And if you can read it yourself and at the end of all that say, I'm cool with that, then vote for it. But I know you won't.
Yeah, no.
I know you're going to see what I saw in there, some part of it, and say, it's just not fair.
Yeah, like right here it says 18 new taxes, right? Or around there, 18.
18 new taxes. Again, there are people who say that because the herb might go down in price, right? So if we actually start getting it down to $400, $500, $600, $700 a pound, it will end up being over 60. Some people are putting it at 65% taxes.
65%, yeah.
Right, because some of them are per ounce prices, and then there's a per ounce for leaves and per ounce for buds, and And so once you put them all together, and that's without county and city taxes, because they're encouraged to tax away, on top of what is already looking at like 50, 60% taxes. So why not? Why not 100% taxes? You want to go in and get your $30, $40 eighth and pay another 30 or 40 in taxes, walk away with your $100 eighth? Because those people who smoke twice a month, those people out there in the suburbs are voting yes on this because they could care less. It's just a minor issue to them. They don't care. They'll pay for it. I won't. You won't. And we shouldn't have to.
Especially you like medicinal use.
Right.
You got to have it. Constant.
Fair amount.
Yeah, fair amount.
Right. They're saying it takes 2 pounds, 2.5, 3 pounds for some to make enough of the Rick Simpson oil, the little essence, to cure cancer. So per cancer patient, you're looking at 2 or 3 pounds.
Exactly.
Which is no big deal if you're growing your own.
If you're
or
growing your
somebody
own,
has a little garden and they're doing it for a few friends, a few people with patients in need. But if you have to go buy that by the gram, now you're looking at $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. I mean, you're really looking at something vaguely close to pharmaceutical drugs, without the side effects, without all the poison, but still out of most people's budget.
And that's what they want, right? They just
absolutely
want to make money off of.
Scared the pharmaceutical industry more than watching cannabis pop up in state after state after state, and the use of pharmaceutical drugs, the use of hard drugs, heroin and cocaine, meth, and the suicide rate all plummet. I mean plummet. I mean 10, 20, 30, sometimes 40% decrease in pharmaceutical, hard drugs, and suicides.
Yeah, see, that's why they don't want.
That's billions of dollars, and more importantly, a control of millions of people. Because money's one game, control's another game. And when you have people relying on you for their drugs and relying on you for their fuel and relying on you for their food, it doesn't really matter what they think. They'll do what you say.
Shit.
So when we can empower ourselves with our own food, when we can make our own fuel, we don't need them at all.
That's right.
Right, and that's what this plant offers. That's the potential we have.
And yeah, and there's also, what else? It says it turns 18 to 21-year-olds.
Oh, into targets.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's how we immediately are going to keep the prison system going.
Yeah.
We will probably up the
So
arrest
that's
rates
another
and the
system that
incarceration
they're-
rates, right? Because they are, young people in an economy that's not going well on the West Coast, Californians. This whole thing's going to open up wide. The big money's going to come in here and start setting up stuff, and everyone's going to think they're going to be part of it. And these kids are going to get targeted, and they say, it's only a $500 fine and 6 months in jail. The first time.
Yeah.
The first time, each one of these things. So every time in there you read, oh, it's a $100 fine, a $250 fine, a $500 fine, 3 months in jail, 6 months in jail, misdemeanors, not felonies in there, felonies. That's for the first time. And that's if nothing else is going on at the moment you get caught with that. But the second time, and if you have other charges, and something else is going on in the room, and you got that all turns into compounded felonies. That all turns into, and then you start getting into this 3 strikes and whether it plays into that and how complicated a felony has to be before it's a serious felony. Nobody knows, but why would we even take the chance that somebody could end up getting their 3rd strike for having a 20-year-old as a grow helping them trim?
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff people don't look into. They don't think
Right.
about when they're
25 to life. You get your 3rd strike.
for.
Having somebody trim herb for you, or passing them a joint, having them pass you a joint. 20-year-old passes me a joint at some show, and all of a sudden we're both facing felonies.
Felonies.
And Prop 19 a few years ago said smoking in the presence of a minor was going to be a felony. That's all it said. Smoking in the presence of a minor. What's that mean? That would have been decided by judges and cops for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, officer, well, judge, he was in the backyard and the kid was upstairs in the house. Same property. That could have been in a park, 800 yards away. But if you could see the kid, would that be in the same vicinity? Could be. We can't leave the door open like that. We cannot let police decide when we're criminals and when we're not concerning cannabis, or really most of this stuff. We should probably pull back most of the laws concerning these things, but definitely with cannabis in California.
Yeah, the cannabis.
Yeah, you're just setting these kids up. These 18, 20-year-olds are going to be they're like a target on their back. They're going to be the easy prey for the police. The rest of us, not that hard.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have more open containers in the car, all these little hooks and things, open containers in the car. All of a sudden you're back to, I smell cannabis. Let me go through your car. You got an open container and there, oh look, I think I see an open container.
That's it. Yeah.
You're back to being a criminal, right? And then they're really going to get into the DUI. They're really going to, again, these are people who consider cannabis to be dangerous and addictive. And they're the ones who wrote this law and plan on implementing it. So everything in there that seems a little weird, but probably won't be that bad, it's going to be that bad and worse. These are sick people. They're not trying to help us out. They're trying to get, Lyman said, we will have more success treating the cannabis problem in California with Prop 64 than we have through prohibition. We will keep this dangerous and addictive drug away from more people through hyperregulation than we have through prohibition. LA Times, less than a year ago. Look it up, Dr. Donald Lyman.
Yeah, Lyman. The one you said that started it, right?
Yeah, he's the proponent. It's his initiative.
Yeah.
And the guy from the LA Times, about halfway through this article, is like, well, doctor, you seem like an awful strange guy to be working with Sean Parker here trying to legalize it. What are you doing? And that's where he started describing, oh, no, prohibition hasn't worked that well. We wished it had. We wished we could have just erased this evil substance from the entire planet, but we can't. So our only excuse now is to, take it over, control it, regulate it, make it so controlled by us, then people won't be able to get it. Then we'll save and protect the children. Then we'll save our communities from a plant that's never killed anybody. A plant that offers great help and resources, and a plant that, people love. Again, safer than almost any plant in your garden today. Chrysanthemums are more dangerous than cannabis. Daisies are more toxic than cannabis. We really have to weigh out what kind of laws we create and what are they protecting us from. And even the high from cannabis is much less noticeable than the highs from most narcotics and pharmaceutical drugs. People forget the first couple of days you start taking heavy drugs.
Oh yeah.
Hallucinating, sweating, horrible mood swings, suicidal thoughts are on most packages of pharmaceutical drugs today. Suicidal thoughts. And yet the slight elevation and increase in appetite and music sounding a little bit better and food tasting a little bit better, somehow that's a dangerous high? That's something we need protection against while they're making fruit-flavored Ritalin for kids? And Ritalin's just a molecule away, an indistinguishable molecule away from methamphetamine. So we're literally feeding kids, 10, 12, 14, 15-year-old kids, blueberry and strawberry flavored methamphetamines, and telling people we're going to spend $200 or $300 million a year telling California kids cannabis is dangerous and addictive, and letting the pharmaceutical industry candy flavor meth for them? That's happening today, right now in California.
Yeah.
Where's our perspective?
Yeah, the people need to look, especially, and then take it seriously too, because they're just seeing like what's being thrown out there, like, oh, this is good for you.
Right.
You have to say yes because this is good for you. This is what you want.
That's the kicker. They're using all of our catchphrases. Everything we've said in the last 25 years, they're recycling to say about this initiative, but it's not true. I've been on, again, 1990, I met Jack Hare. He convinced me within a year that what he was saying is true. And what he said was, hemp can save the planet. He wasn't sure if it was, but he says it's the only thing that could. And he had equations. He had broken down scientifically how hemp could fill the void of petroleum and nuclear, and how those were the greatest threats to life on Earth. How petroleum, the misuse of petroleum, the misuse of nuclear, getting us closer and closer to maybe wiping out this planet, and that hemp was the one resource that could fill those two voids like that. The Agricultural Department of America did a study that said that 6% of the reserved land for farming, we have all the land for farming in America, and then we have reserve land. So if some disease comes and destroys every acre we have for farming today, we have a whole bunch of land to fall back on immediately and start farming on. If we use 6% of that land that we're not farming right now but could, and just on hemp, we could replace 100% of petroleum in America.
6%.
The Agriculture Department of the U.S. government did that study. Jack Hare found it buried deep in some, Washington, D.C. library, and there it is. That's how Jack Hare could say hemp can save the planet. And on the back of his book, he had a $10,000 offer. Said if you could misprove that, if there's anything in that book you could disprove, he'd give you 10 grand. So that was on the back of his book for years, still there. Nobody's ever been able to collect it because scientifically, it's valid and true. So if something's that important, we can't hyper-regulate it. We can't lock it in a box like it was tobacco or like it was alcohol or like it was some other drug. We need it accessible to the people. The founding fathers believed that. It's been restated and restated throughout history.
And and Prop 64 is like trying to not give you access to it anymore.
Right.
Try to kill 215.
As it is designed to keep cannabis out of the hands of people.
Yeah.
Just read the first statement. Every bill, the first statement is what you can always go, and the judges will always go back to, well, what's the intent of the law? Whenever it gets kind of fuzzy in there. What's the intent? That's your opening statement. It's like a good news article or something. You always say your main thing at the very first sentence. So the very first sentence of UMA is, it is designed to tax, regulate, and control all cannabis in the state. Not cannabis, marijuana. That's
tax, regulate, and control.
Tax, regulate, and control all marijuana in the state. So this idea that anything's going to be off the plate, there's even, again, as we reread it for fifth or sixth time recently, it says that they're going to require all the cannabis that's grown to be sent to probably someplace in Sacramento to be processed and reviewed and tested, and then either sent back to you or sent to the thing. But there's nowhere in UMA does it say that the 1, 2, 4, 5 plants they let you have also doesn't have to be sent to Sacramento. So your own little head stash of medicine, they might pop up in a year or two and say, oh yeah, now that we're all got this all settled and locked in, everyone who thinks you're growing at home, you got to send your medicine to Sacramento, have it certified, and then sent back to you. How crazy is that? They can do that legally because they left that loophole there. I don't know if they did that on purpose. I don't know if that's their plan,
Well, yeah, I mean,
but probably. But
and
you're right.
do you remember where is that located in case you want
I will highlight that on Legalize 2016 on Instagram sometime over this weekend.
Yeah.
Because again, there are so many hooks in there. And again, and when you start looking, if you hashtag NoOn64 on YouTube, there have been 4 debates up until now, maybe 5, and a dozen good exposés and articles done on what's wrong with this initiative. And every point's valid.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like there's one thing we all hate about this initiative. You can go through page by page and just pull out the things that aren't fair on it. So again, there's a lot of angles on it. It's worth looking into, although what I find is once you realize, well, that's the one that I hate, that's the thing I can't stand, you don't really need to know the rest.
Yeah.
Most people are so offended that the state's not going to get any of the money. That's enough. Just the fact that they're going to keep all the money, even if everything else were fair in it. Them keeping all the money and spending it on their little slush fund projects.
Yeah.
That's enough to say no.
It's crazy, man.
It is. No 164. Kick it out the door. All right.
And oh yeah, we had that on the table.
Boom. Wanted to share a little information
Let's
about
see.
Jack Hare. This is the
Get
man
closer.
who introduced
Oh, there
a
it is.
lot of the
Yeah.
world to cannabis.
Jack Hare.
Jack Hare. He wrote a book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. I don't know if you can really see that. It's a pop-up book. So it's got Jack's face in there and a whole little history of cannabis.
Paper, fiber, fuel, food.
All its medicinal uses, industrial uses, religious uses, personal uses, they're all valid. They're all
Yeah.
good. This is the book that changed the world in many ways. The Emperor Wears No Clothes. This is Jack's other book a lot of people don't know about. It's a coloring book about the underground cannabis culture. Brilliant, worth a read through as well, a real keeper. And then there's a great film about Jack Hare called The Emperor of Hemp. And it's a little expose on his life, tells a little bit about him. Definitely worth a watch as well. These are the pioneers of the 20th century and hopefully laying the groundwork for a healthy and functioning 21st century. And by the last challenge, as many publishings of this book, now it's a $100,000 challenge to the world to prove us wrong. So the premise that hemp can save the planet, it's the only thing that can, on the back of the book, published for 25 years till now or longer.
And nobody.
Started at 10,000. Now there's a $100,000 challenge. If you can prove anything in this book is wrong, you get $100,000. So that's what again, as a challenge I took fairly serious in 1990. I'm like, well, I like weed, but it can't be that good. And if the guys offer me $10,000 to prove any one thing in this book is wrong, I'm going to read it and find that thing. There's nothing in there that's wrong.
Nothing.
25 years later, I finally quit looking and realized Jack was right, but he didn't even know how right he was. We're finding out things now about the endocannabinoid system. They're making what did they make? They made in Toronto, Canada last year. The University of Toronto made a super capacitor out of hemp plastic, out of just hemp, junk hemp. The university had already done their big hemp projects. And this one group of students came in and said, what's up with all this hemp? And they're like, that's what's just left. All the students came and took all the hemp for their fiber projects. And this is just the trash that's left. And I thought, well, there's no trash hemp. Let's see what we can do with this, just the bottom of the barrel, as it were, in this big warehouse, right? And so they said, what would be the most exotic thing we could make? Let's see if we can make a super capacitor out of hemp. That's what they use for a lot of solar, a lot of computers. Today a super capacitor is one of the key electronic elements in the world. They made a super capacitor out of hemp. There's a bunch of college students.
Yeah.
1/1000th the cost of what we use today. They have a very complex metal called graphene.
Yeah.
That's what supercapacitors are made out of today. It's made out of several different metal alloys from all over the planet, and they have to do an atom wash. After they're done pressing all the stuff to make graphene, they have to do an acid wash on it. Very expensive, very intense, to make something that will hold and give off a strong electrical charge. They pressed a bunch of hemp together and it worked better. Stayed cooler, last longer, gave off more power. 1/1000th the cost. That's the 20th century.
Yeah.
We could have had everything. Airplanes, jet airplanes, spacecrafts, the shuttle, cell phones, everything at 1/1000th the cost.
1/1000. That's.
Just think about that. 1/1000th. Instead of having to work 300 of the 365 days, we'd have to work 1 day every 4 years. Imagine having everything you have right now and only having to work 1 day every 3 years instead of having to work 5 days a week every day for the rest of your life, which is what most of us are doing, right?
Yeah.
So that's what the war on cannabis cost us. It cost us 1,000-fold. Not to talk about the environmental disasters.
That's
not to
the
talk
main
about
thing.
The ecological nightmare, Fukushima, and the Alaska, and the Gulf of Mexico. You just name a part of the world, and everyone goes, "Oh yeah, the one there, right?" You know, we got oil spills and nuclear meltdowns on every continent. None of that was necessary either. So even if the price was the same, even if it would cost us, even if somehow hemp was very complicated to process, and it cost the exact same, but the environmental impact was hemp feeds the soil, makes it healthier, and petroleum and nuclear are killing everything.
Shit.
That alone would be it. But let's follow the money for a second. Let's think about what kind of difference this would make if there weren't 1,000 people who control half of the world's wealth by petroleum. That's really how that's played out in the last 100 years, is now we've consolidated half of the world's wealth in the hands of several hundred people, and the other half of the planet's living on $2 a day. Just on the verge of starving. Half the planet's on the verge of starving, the other half is tipped with a 1/10 of 1% of 1% that controls quadrillions of dollars. And it's sickening. It's sickening.
Yeah, and it's not convenient to them for people to start looking into this, like you said. Like,
oh yeah, 100 million hemp farmers or 1,000 oil barons.
Shit.
Same energy. We still got, you know, every car in the world has to run, everything could be running, but we could have, instead of having pushed millions of farmers off their farms and into the cities, we could have left them there, let them produce our fuel, we'd have a healthier environment, and again, an economy that I can't even picture. If we had to work 1,000 times harder to do everything we did with petroleum than what was necessary, God, don't we feel like schmucks? Because everyone feels like, wow, we worked a little hard. Sometimes it seems like there's not enough on the planet.
Well, yeah.
They kind of convinced us that like it's sort of dog against dog. Like, oh no, people might starve soon. We might run out of resources.
That's what they're putting out there right now.
Absolutely. No, that's how they get us to fight each other. That's how that's the only reason anybody will go to the other side of the world and fight them is because they feel their family is going to starve if they don't. And it's always the tool, that's always the little ploy to get people to all stirred up for warfare. And yet, it's not true, and it's not necessary at all.
Yeah, because you have like hemp and alternatives.
Absolutely, yeah, and hemp's just the best. There's algae and funguses, and there are other ways of doing everything we do with petroleum. Hemp is, again, in so many ways the best, but right there with it, kind of like you have petroleum, but they also have nuclear, and they also have some coal, and all these things that we don't need that are kind of similar.
Yeah.
Same with hemp. There's a whole family of things around hemp that once we start working with it, we're going to find out that, again, there's types of algae that are incredible, and all sorts of mushrooms that do unique things we can make plastics out of and make cardboard out of, and everything we're doing right now, cutting down trees, none of it's necessary. Let's save the last of the redwoods we have in this state. Let's actually legalize cannabis, give the Central Valley, again, a 20, 40, 60 billion dollar market. That Northern and Southern California keep producing the best cannabis in the world, right?
Yeah.
Keep pumping out the herb, but tenfold that can be produced in the Central Valley with industrial hemp. And then we could tell Saudi Arabia, we're done.
Yeah.
And then we could tell Texas, we don't need your black gold, whatever, your Texas tea anymore. We're gonna do it green. Isn't that what California's all about? We're supposed to be an environmental cutting edge, and yet we are so far behind Germany. We are so far behind Thailand right now, it's embarrassing.
Shit.
We got a little catching up to do. And this isn't going to give us it.
Yeah, and
64
Prop
is not
64
going to
is
put us
not-
forward at all.
Put us back.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll never recoup from 64. And that's what scares us the most, is once this thing passes, we aren't going to be able to fix it in 2 years. It's not going to just go away. We're not going to be able to get in there and tittle with it and go up to Sacramento and be like, oh, you guys fix this for us. It ain't going to happen. These guys are complacent in this kind of crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
especially because the party said that it will protect the laws around 215.
And cements MRSA in the law, which pretty much then will destroy Prop 215.
Yeah.
And leave us, like Colorado and Washington, with no rights, only privileges. And privileges can be taken away. A right you got, Privileges, whenever they feel like taking it away, they will. And that's what 64 offers. Privileges, not rights.
Privileges, not rights. Well, right now we're approaching our first hour.